Hi guys, welcome to the startup life. Let me make sure I got my camera set up correctly. Yeah, I wish by default this would just be here. All right, we're good to go. So today we're gonna do the HackerRank staircase problem. Now this one took me a hot minute to kind of like fully get it working the way I wanted to. I know it says easy, but it's so deceptive, right? But the whole point is that we just want to be able to understand how the problem was solved. And once we can see one problem that way, we can start looking at similar problems and kind of have an understanding of how to approach them. At least that's my angle. So with the staircase problem here, you want to consider a staircase that has a size of n, right? And so the base is equal to the height. Both of them are n. And the image is drawn using the hash symbol and spaces. And the last line is not preceded by any spaces. So here are the parameters, the constraints, and all that. The last line must have 0 spaces in it. And it's right aligned, right? So let me go to my REPL. The way I go about or went about solving it is, okay, so we have a function. I already declared how I was going to solve it. So this here is just where I'm going to be stating, like when I actually solve it, that's my little test case thingy, to see if it comes out right. So in here, let's start off with just letting, because I want to just call n height n. So I'm going to say var height is equal to n. So kind of want to put it out there that just so I have it clear in my head, that n is actually height, right? Then we really have, what we have here, if we look at the staircase, is what we really have is two loops that we have to do because we have a nested array. So if you look at this whole thing, this whole situation here is an array. That's one array. And then individually, that is an array. So the height, when it says like the base and the height are the same, the height, this whole array, which is one single array, it has 6 elements in it. So that big, larger array has 6 elements in it. So, 6 elements. So this is position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Or I said position 1, but I mean index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, and index 5, right? So it has 5 indexes, right? And then the same goes to, like, if we look at each individual index, the nested array within that array, there's index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. Does that make sense? So there's a larger array with indexes 0 to 5, which is like 6 actual positions. And then there's a secondary array happening, and those also have indexes 0 to 5 for 6 positions, right? And so that requires us looping twice. We're looping one time majorly, like to go through this whole thing, like this whole diamond, this whole square that we got going on. Let's think about it like a square, as if it's a square, right? To go through that whole square line by line, and then we're iterating within that line. I think I've repeated that enough times for you guys to get it. So for the first array, we're going to do a loop to iterate through it. Var I equals 0. and I is less than the height I, and we're going to just increment through that, right? And we want it so that it says like var, we got a row, right? And the row for right now it's empty. Ain't nothing in it. But as we go through this array, we'll figure out what we want to put in it. So this is where we're going to put our second nested loop. So within this loop, we're not leaving it. We're writing this second nested loop for that nested array, right? And we're going to say var, let's give this iteration that's happening here in these nested array j. We'll call it j for the indexes, okay? And we'll say j is less than height because they both have the same height, like the base and the height is the same. J plus plus. Now we're going to make the condition because this, obviously there's a condition that's happening here. There's if something happens, you give it a space. If something else happens, you give it a hash, right? So we're going to have an if else statement. So if something happens, we want to either say row is going to get a hash, right? Mm-hmm. Else, if said condition is not met, then row will get a space. All right. So we haven't defined what that condition is. We'll define it in here. Now, this is where it gets hard. Okay. This is where it gets hard. But before I do that, I want to console log at least row so we can test it out and see what's happening as it happens. So we want to be outside of this when we see where I'm at. Yeah, we're outside of the loop, so, or we're outside of like the first loop. We're in the, we're outside of the nested loop, and now we're in the, like, we're here. We're in that space where the row is, where the row exists, where that first loop has occurred. So now we can console log whatever row's new value is. Now, here's the tricky part. The if statement. Bruh. Y'all, this was so hard. Trying to figure out how to write this if statement. Because it's not as straightforward as you would think. But you basically, with all this, you have the basics of the of this algorithm. Like, this is like the structure you should be, and you're basically more than halfway through. It's just this little section that it's hard to figure out, and that's what is the deciding factor between saying whether it's a row or if it's if that row takes a hash or if it takes a space. And I'll go into that in like our second segment, because wow, 10 minutes has already passed by in just this explanation. All right.